I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and it's time to get wealthy. you're going to learn exactly what you need to do to finally achieve the level of financial success you desire and you deserve. Black is beautiful and profitable too. The beauty supply industry is an $18 billion industry, and African Americans buy more ethnic products than any other group, 9 times more to be exact. And the truth is that they own only 1% of the beauty supply stores. The majority of African American beauty supply stores are owned by Korean Americans, and they also control the supply chain. Part of that is because many of the products that you find in beauty supply stores, like wigs and hair, are manufactured there. Well, when our guest today found out about that fact, she decided to take matters into her own hands and teach African Americans how they can start their own beauty supply store. And so here's what I want you to know, or what they don't want you to know, about what it really takes to achieve and have a financial successful business. First off, is that obstacles really are opportunities, and that's what you're going to learn today. And the other thing is that there's strength in numbers. When you learn how to leverage your resources together, you can overcome any obstacle, and that success leaves clues. And that's why, if you want to be successful in any business venture, then you need to find a mentor. And so that's exactly what we're going to cover today. You know that our framework on Get Wealthy for achieving success is mindset, strategy, and execution. And so that's exactly where we're going to begin today with our guest, Janice Fredericks, who, when she discovered these numbers, decided to take matters into her own hands and start her own successful beauty supply store in Queens, New York. And I'm excited to welcome her to Wealthy You today. So Janice Fredericks, welcome to Get Wealthy.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about beauty supply stores with you this morning.
Well, to my point, I mean, Black, it really is beautiful and profitable when it comes to, ethnic beauty. I mean, that figure that I quoted, we purchase 9 times more of these products.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about how you basically, when you learned of this, you decided to go into this venture.
Right. So like many young African-American women, I was working in the corporate space, and I would frequent the beauty supply stores every single week. And before I knew about the larger, billion-dollar number, I just sat in a beauty supply store one day for 10 minutes and I counted the transactions, and it was almost like 3,000 that was transacted within 10 minutes. But at the end of that transaction, the person who was collecting the money was treating all the Black women like garbage, right? And so I decided in my mind, like, I just sat in that moment. I was like, wow, we are spending so much money. But at the end of their transaction, it was like a lackluster experience. And I decided to myself, this has to change. Like, I no longer want to spend the amount of money that I'm spending in these stores and leaving feeling horrible, basically. We would go to Saks and, Nordstrom, and we get the champagne experience and we spend hundreds of dollars. But when we go to our local beauty supply store and we're spending the same exact money, we're not getting treated with that champagne experience. And that's exactly why I started my own beauty supply store almost 12 years ago, because I wanted to be the change. I wanted to see this industry. And I also knew that Black women spend a ton of money on beauty supply, as I was in that store just counting the transactions.
As I thought about how much money Black women spend in beauty, I sort of like look at my aunts, that they were the glamour queens, right? And so, certainly they grew up in the Jim Crow era. And I remember my aunt saying to me, oh yeah, we literally had to use charcoal for eyeliner, right? And yet they would still make themselves up into these some of the pictures of them when they were young were just amazing. And we do know that style is a big part of the African American experience, not only African American experience. I've even become like what do they call it? A Nollywood junkie, where I look at Nigerian movies and I see just the glamour, even though they may not have a lot of money, but style is very important.
It's very
important. What I want, very important to us, is like a part of our DNA. It's how we, convey our authenticity. But I'm really, really curious. That number of 1% kind of took my breath away. And so my first question to you is about, what are the barriers to entry? Why is that number so small?
Right. So that number is small. Like, as you mentioned in the beginning, this is an Asian dominated market that was actually designed to do that. And so back in the 1970s, where the government had put certain clauses for the Asian Americans to profit off of this industry through manufacturing and distribution, that happened all back in the 1970s. And so that there were clauses to allow the Asian Americans to come to America and be successful through those distribution channels. Well, then they needed a retail space for those channels to survive. And that's when the beauty supply stores really started to kick off. And so because there has been this Asian domination in the industry for decades, they have been able to completely kick African Americans out of this industry. And so when I got started in 2010 with my beauty supply store, I had to literally find another Black-owned stores just to get products. And I had to actually buy products through this other store before they were going to even give me accounts for my own store. Because when I would call the vendors, and if I didn't speak the native tongue, they would literally hang up on me. And so it was extremely challenging to actually open direct accounts with vendors so that I can be a profitable beauty supply store in my first 2 years of business because I didn't speak the native tongue. And so I had to literally get all of my supplies and get my entire start by having a mentor myself.
So that was one of the points that I made about what folks need to understand about succeeding in business. And it is the fact that, success leaves clues, and there are, you need a mentor. And so as you grew your own business, right? Do you still own the store in New York?
No, I do the consulting full time now. So we created the stores for 8 years, and then I had to completely pivot into helping other Black women because it was a full-time job. And so now that's what we do. We literally take you from A to Z on all of the things step by step you need to have in place to open and run a very successful beauty supply store with your own unique branding, because we know that there are a dime a dozen in our community. And we are not only just competing with our local beauty supply stores, but we're also competing with the big box retailers now, because as you know, Deborah, the Targets and the Walmarts, they are all after Black hair care now, especially in the natural space. And so it is important strategy-wise, when we talk about strategy and entering this industry in a really strategic way, it's important that we really create a really unique beauty brand before getting started in beauty supply and actually setting up.
I want to get to strategy in our next segment, but I'm really curious because I think that what is necessary is that people are informed if they are going to look at this as a business opportunity. And so to that end, in terms of the mindset, certainly you encountered a number of different challenges and obstacles, not speaking the language, the fact that the supply chain is, clearly dominated by one sector and trying to get the foot in the door. So I want to start with the mindset that you have found in coaching others that you need to bring to the table if you're going to capture this huge market, right? And those increase the number of beauty supply stores that are owned by African Americans themselves.
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is to be definitely purpose driven in this industry, because what we're doing in this movement of creating Black-owned beauty supply stores in our community is where we're becoming change makers. We are here to change the way that Black women have historically purchased their beauty supply products through experience. And so that's the first mindset. It's not a get rich quick type of business. There are going to be a ton of obstacles and challenges. Like I mentioned, the biggest one is actually our vendors and just getting inventory for your beauty supply store. And so you have to have the mindset of I'm a pioneer in this industry. And so it is not going to be easy. I'm a change maker in this industry. And so I'm going to have some challenges, especially when it comes to just even getting the biggest asset on our balance sheet, which is inventory in for the store. You definitely have to have the mindset of this is a risk, right? Again, because we are, treading these waters that aren't really known in our community, and we're all doing this for the first time. Most of the Black-owned stores in the community are the first ones there, and so with those things in mind, you really have to have tenacity. You have to have grit. You have to be able to pivot. Because a lot of times, again, just going back to that Asian domination, that we have to be able to pivot when they say you can't open a store here because there's a store 3 miles away. And I have seen that with many clients. So really the main thing is just to be purpose driven and to understand that you're a pioneer in this and it's not going to be an easy road.
Well, it is interesting because in you just sharing in the first few minutes that you couldn't go direct to suppliers, so you had to get your products from other vendors, other beauty supply owners. I mean, that certainly was overcoming an obstacle. And so I'm interested in how you had to, how you thought through if you were going to be successful, that this was the first step you needed to take.
Yes. So as I tried to navigate opening my accounts directly, and then I was, hit with those obstacles, I thought to myself, listen, this is not going to always be the issue. I'm going to get the products anyway, and then I'm going to show these reps, because these are sales reps and they make a commission off of their off of the invoices, that, hey, if I can get the products anyway, and I could show you that people want to shop with me, even though my prices are a little bit higher because I have to charge a little bit more, obviously, because I'm not getting the product direct, but they still want to shop with me because I'm Black owned, for them to just go ahead and open the accounts anyway, because I still have your product anyway. And this is what I also explain to a lot of my clients who are facing issues with getting accounts directly. I say you may have to take a slight loss in the beginning, profit-wise, because you have to go through like a third-party vendor, or you may have to order with another beauty supply store. But after a while, once they see that people are going to support you, even with a higher price point, because you're a Black-owned beauty supply store and you're offering them experience outside of just the products that they buy, so it's not so transactional, that they will still support you, and that it will be advantageous for the vendor to open accounts for you. So that is exactly what I did. I just kept moving forward. I got the products at a higher price point, and I wanted to prove to them that even at this higher price point, people will still support me because I'm Black owned and I'm offering them the experience that they don't get at their traditional beauty supply store or the Target.
Well, I love how you because I think that when you go into any business venture, and we know that African American women in particular are starting businesses at a rapid rate, much higher than their counterparts. And so when we come back, I want to talk with you a little bit more about what specific strategies are needed to succeed in this industry. So don't go anywhere, folks. We're having a fascinating conversation about the beauty supply industry, the Black beauty supply industry, with Janice Fredericks. She has a coaching and consulting company called Retail Genius, and we'll be right back.
Let's be honest, as successful women, we're crushing it. Maxed out 401k and Roth IRA? Check. Aggressive savings and investments? Check. Yet, the freedom our success was supposed to buy can leave us stuck on the six-figure hamster wheel, watching retirement slip further down the road. There's another way. Get coaching courses and community at wealthyu.com.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back to Get Wealthy. I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and we're talking Black is Beautiful and Profitable today with Janice Fredericks, who opened her own beauty supply after she discovered some of the stats that we're discussing today. That, although we buy 9 times the amount of products, Black women that is, that we only own 1% in this industry. And how, on Wealthy You and Get Wealthy, we say that problems are opportunities. Well, that's exactly what our conversation is about today. So Janice Fredericks, fascinating how you are sharing, sort of inside baseball, the reason why there are only 1% of these stores are owned by African Americans is because the barriers to entry can be quite high. And yet you ran a successful beauty supply store for years, and now you are teaching others. So let's talk strategy, okay? Strategy about what it's going to take to bust through this industry. So for our audience, what is the first thing you need to do if you're listening to this and your ears perked up, that you need to do if you're going to consider starting a venture in this industry?
So the first thing I tell people is to figure out how you want to show up in the beauty supply industry. What do you want to be known for? Because what we definitely don't want is a replica of what we've been seeing. And we don't want to repeat the experience of what we have in our traditional beauty supply stores. And so I always ask women, what is the void in your community? What do people complain about when they go to their local traditional beauty supply stores? So in my case, again, back in 2010, this was the start of the natural hair care boom. And so the biggest void was women not having access to the natural hair care products that they were purchasing online. Because again, this was before Target and Walmart, had their natural hair care aisles in their stores. And so the only way to get these products was online. And so I decided to capitalize on that because I saw that was a void in the community. And I was actually one of the first beauty supply stores, even nationally, to carry several Black-owned natural hair care brands in my store. And so my store in Queens, New York, which was a very, very small, cute store, it literally became a natural hair care hub. And so I capitalized on that niche market of providing hair care products to my consumers, products, again, that they can only historically find online or, find on social media. And I was the first to actually have those products in my store before they went on to big box retailers. And so being able to figure out like, what is the void in my community? What do Black women complain about is the number one strategy to figure out how you want to show up in this industry with your own unique beauty brand. The second thing that I always talk about is the location. So location is still king. And it's so important for you to build your beauty supply store in a space where you know Black women are either shopping, where they work or where they live, so that you can capitalize that market. And also, when it comes to location, a lot of times people are afraid to open their beauty supply stores because they may be another Asian-owned store, 3 miles away or 5 miles away. And what I actually say to that is I get excited because I know that when I open my beauty supply store in that area with the type of experience that I'm going to present to the community, that I'm going to immediately take all of their customers, just because we bring something different to the table when we open our Black-owned beauty supply stores in our communities.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I certainly believe there are riches and niches, and it's really about finding out what is the, what is the real problem. I love how you frame this because that's the whole point, right? Like, obstacles and problems are opportunities. You just have to figure out how to serve it. However, location is important, but in just in terms of a strategy, when people are considering this industry, now so much is being purchased online. Is your advice then to not only have a good location, but also have a robust online shopping experience as well?
I love that you bring that up because it's a question I get daily, especially when people are like, I want to test out beauty supply and I want to start online. And my immediate answer is still no. And this is the reason why. The beauty supply store is a staple in the Black community, period. The number one Google search right now is, in terms of beauty supply, is Black-owned beauty supply near me. So the beauty supply, going back to the beauty supply experience that I talk a lot about, is that Black women still want to come into a space to feel safe, right? We want to come to a place where we can have conversation about our hair with someone that looks like us. We have historically never had that experience. And so that experience can only happen in our physical spaces. Now, I love the online space and mobile beauty supply stores that I've seen come up in the industry in recent years, because it's an awesome supplement to your brick and mortar location. But really, your profits and your sales and your revenue is going to come when you are able to provide that safe space for Black women within their own communities.
The other aspect of strategy that I feel like you're conveying is that the biggest competitive advantage that you can take advantage of as a beauty supply owner that is Black really is creating the experience that they're not necessarily getting elsewhere, even though there are, I can go down one road and there are tens of numbers of them.
Right, exactly. The way that we are going to be competitive in this oversaturated market, and the way we're going to compete against Target and Walmart and even these like mega beauty supply stores, is going back to the core essence of what retail is. And that is someone's ability to come into your space and use their five senses, seeing, testing out the products, having regular conversations, because right now retail is so transactional. It's the self-checkout and the self this and the self that. Black women in particular, we want conversation. We crave conversation when it comes to our beauty, especially when it comes to our crown, which is our hair. Like we spoke earlier, like this is our identity. And so with our shopping experience, we crave the conversation to understand, am I buying the right products? How's this product going to make me feel? How does this product translate into my everyday confidence? Right? And people pay a lot to look and feel good and to be confident at the end of the day.
Well, it's interesting as well, Janice. I think the point that you're hitting on, and I hope our viewers are getting this, is that there's price and there's value, right? Yes. And I guess the point that you're making is if you're going to enter this industry, it really is about creating value beyond just the product.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I do have, one other question for you in terms of retailer, right? So I'm seeing, in fact, I was in the mall yesterday and so many of these stores are closing, right? And COVID has had a significant impact on in-person retailer. How has it impacted the beauty industry more specifically? And would you still recommend that or advise someone to actually open a brick and mortar, even with the kinds of challenges that the pandemic has presented?
So that's a really interesting question, because during the pandemic, our Black-owned beauty supply stores were actually able to thrive because we have access to our consumers and customers in a place where Target and a lot of the Asian-owned stores didn't have access to their data, because again, it was more transactional for them. So they weren't collecting emails, they weren't collecting phone numbers like our Black-owned beauty supply stores. And so in that time, we were able to capitalize off of their stores being shut down and not being able to reach their consumer. And we were able to do like delivery and, curbside pickup and, just really communicate with our customers on a more intimate level because we had those relationships established. So the pandemic did a great thing, a great service for our Black-owned beauty supply stores. And it did obviously change the way our consumers shop for beauty supplies. And so that you will have a small group of people who still prefer to do like curbside pickup and delivery and things of that nature. And so what that actually did for our Black-owned stores, it just actually created additional revenue channels. And so now we have the ability to outsource delivery. We have the ability to have like 24-hour service where we can outsource someone coming to pick up their products or do a delivery service. So some of our stores do have like a 24-hour service where they can deliver your products to your hair salon, for example, 3:00 in the morning. I have one client that does that and she makes a lot of money. So there has been so many different opportunities now that the pandemic has happened, and it kind of shaped the way people are shopping for their beauty supply, where we can add in those additional revenue streams in addition to our actual brick and mortar locations.
What you're talking about is innovation. And, as a business owner myself, certainly I had to innovate. A lot of that had to do with virtual and just how we connected. However, last thing, I think the biggest impediment or one of the biggest challenges in retail right now, we're hearing how difficult it is for staffing. And so what advice would you give to someone considering this venture around, attacking that whole staffing challenge?
So my number one thing when we talk about hiring people for your beauty supply store is just making sure that they understand that this is a purpose-driven business and that they have that mission and vision ingrained in them. So they're not just, because retail has very high turnover. We all know that. And so you will experience a little bit of that. But if you do an excellent job at explaining what the mission and vision of this business is, and explaining to your potential staff members that, there is an overall movement that is being taken place in the Black community where you can be a part of this, that definitely helps with retention right now.
Oh, I love it. Mission, vision, and values is always the way to retain employees and help them to feel a part of not
Big
just,
movement.
it's not always about the profit, right? It's not always about the profit or making money, is that people want to feel valued and affirmed in their workplace. We've covered a lot in terms, we started with mindset, know that you're going into this and that there are some, some challenges, some things that you're going to have to overcome, but those challenges are opportunities if you approach it the right way. And then strategy, we talked a lot about how, if you're going to enter this industry, you need to innovate and really think out of the box, but more importantly, take ownership and convey that it's a movement and that you're going into this not just about profit, but purpose is a part of that. And when we come back, I want to talk to Janice a little bit about execution. Now, if you're thinking about, if your antenna went up and you thought this could be an opportunity, now we're going to talk about how you execute on it. So we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, my name is Yemi. I was a part of Genesis Beauty Supply Bootcamp. I have to say the class has been amazing. It's been a blessing actually, because I knew I wanted to open a beauty supply store. I just didn't know where. Once I started the class with her, she helped me understand and have a solid foundation on how to run a successful retail business and how to open one as well. We discussed about branding, marketing, our inventory mix and all of that. And whenever I had questions, she was more than willing to answer them, and she was very professional. And it has been really great, honestly. And then I feel confident that once I start, I will be able to have a successful business, and she instilled that confidence in me. Thank you, Janice.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and I hope you're enjoying our conversation on Get Wealthy today. Black is beautiful and profitable, and our guest today is Janice Fredericks. She is owner of Retail Genius, and she has taken the beauty supply industry on and helping more Black women get involved in it. There's certainly room for growth, knowing that only 1% own beauty stores in this industry. And so now it's about execution. So Janice, come on back, because I am all about execution. We talked about mindset, strategy, execution, and the reason Get Wealthy exists is to help people get exposed to information on how to build wealth. And now we're talking about building wealth through entrepreneurship. So I want to take an inside peek of the kinds of consulting you do with people who are considering this industry. So if I wanted to execute on this, what's the first thing that I need to do to prepare myself to be successful in this industry?
Yes. So the first thing that you need to do to be successful is to go back and think about what your why is for even getting into this industry, and why you want to, create a beauty supply store in your community, and how you want to show up in this industry. Like, what is going to be your it factor? That's literally the number one thing that we do. What kind of products do you want to sell? Like, so I mentioned in my and with my store, I capitalized on like the natural hair care movement. And so like what trends can you capitalize on? Because that's going to be the focus of our core product mix. And so we take time to really define that, because again, we don't want to be a replica of what we've seen in the community already. And so when we come up with your unique beauty supply brand, we then start to think about the funding. So the funding piece is one of the biggest obstacles for people actually getting started. So they have the strategy, they know how they want to show up in this industry, they know what the void is in their community, but it's the funding that holds a lot of people back. And so it's the funding, and then it's figuring out, well, how much do I need for my particular store, right? Because we have boutique size stores, and then we have mega beauty supply stores. And so the funding piece and the budget varies a lot. Location is a big factor. I opened my store in New York, which is one of the most expensive places to operate any type of business. And then there's a lot of Black-owned beauty supply stores down in the South. And so all of these factors, we sit down and we figure out, what is the budget going to be? Where are we going to get this funding? Do we need investors? And so we come up with a funding map, which is just your roadmap of how we're going to get funding for your beauty supply vision. Because what I want is to see your vision be executed. I don't want to scale down. I don't want to dumb down the vision. I want to make sure that we figure out how we're going to get the funding to execute your specific vision that God gave you. And once we figure out the funding piece, we get to work on one of the second biggest obstacle, which is finding that perfect location. And so on our team, we actually have a realtor that does that part for our clients. And so she goes out and she looks at different spaces, and she, comes up with an LOI and, walks our clients through that whole process of, securing an amazing location, getting an amazing lease. And then we start to build out the store. And so I have an amazing team with me now, where I have an architect on our team who does an amazing store layout. I have an interior designer who builds out a beautiful, appealing, premium space where Black women can come in and just feel luxurious and feel seen and have an amazing experience in your store. And we put all of those pieces together, my team and I, for all of our clients. And then I go ahead and I actually am the person who does the vendor accounts and orders the products for all of my clients, because I have those established relationships with a lot of the vendors. I've been in this industry almost 20 years now. And so it's easy for me to now bridge that gap, where before 10 years ago, if you had called a vendor and you didn't speak their native tongue, they would literally hang up on you. And so now I fill the void for people who are now needing to get accounts for their beauty supply stores, because I have these relationships with them and they understand that this is a movement. So you might as well just work with me and my clients, because we are going to open these stores with or without these direct accounts. And so once we get the accounts, it's just all about getting the word out and having a robust marketing plan so that the community knows that, hey, a Black-owned beauty supply store is opening in the community and we need your support. And so we create a robust marketing plan for all of our clients before we have our soft launch event. So in my program, I teach a 2-launch strategy. So that's having a soft launch event to troubleshoot the store and to troubleshoot the product mix and POS system and a lot of our back end operations. And then we have a really big grand opening event where we have the Black Chamber of Commerce come out. We have beauty influencers. And so that whole thing ties in all together at our big grand opening event. And that's kind of a real snapshot of what it takes to open a beauty supply store in your community.
Well, yes, this is Get Wealthy, and one of the things that I'm a numbers person, and so what I would say, what I want this audience to understand is typically if you were going into a franchise or something of that sort, there's a minimum investment required, and then I want them to get a sense. So if you were just to look back over the people who have maybe were sort of early stage and maybe didn't have the a lot of capital to invest. I mean, just a general amount of investment that requires. Certainly capital can come from different places, but in their minds, what should they look at? What should they consider if they were going to go into this venture?
So I would say the average is around low six figure investment. We have open beauty supply stores with, just 50,000, but obviously the more inventory you have, the more opportunity you have to make money and be a profitable store. And so I tell people to, think about 90,000 to, it's upwards 150,000. Just depending again on where you are location wise, because that makes a world of a difference. And also the type of inventory you want to carry in your store. So the biggest pieces to think about is your location, the inventory, and then the working capital you're going to need in order for this business to run successfully for the first 6 months. That's the three main things that I want you guys to think about when thinking about a beauty supply venture.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And so in addition to that, one of the things that I hear you saying is about inventory, and inventory is money. And so in this industry, what are like the terms? I mean, can I buy with a 90-day invoice strategy? I mean, what are the terms, if you will, of agreement for actually getting product?
So for inventory, you will have to pay for all of your inventory up front. I've also found that out the hard way. A lot of the vendors don't like to give terms in the beginning, but after about 3 to 6 orders, they do offer net terms. So net 30 days, net 60 days, net 90 days. In some cases, they will offer terms, but a lot of times just getting in this industry and not being an Asian-owned store, they will not extend terms to you. So that is why it is so important for you to understand what your budget is going to be and how much inventory you're going to need to fill your store up front, because you will have to pay for all of that inventory out of pocket when you first open your beauty supply store.
And then, the other thing is inventory is money, right? Like I know the numbers person in me, and even being a business person. So how do I'm just trying to, kind of help the audience understand why it's so important to do your homework and get the type of knowledge you need to be successful. How do I know how much inventory to order and of what products? I mean, do you have like information on, do you counsel them just on, what their product mix should be, and actually how to determine what's going to be in demand?
Exactly. So that is the hardest part. And I still to this very day, when I do orders from clients, it is a huge headache because it's so many products, and it takes days to even figure out one invoice. And so how we start with this is that we look at the product mix and how you want to be represented or known in this industry. And then we identify different vendors that carry those specific products. So for example, with my beauty supply store, again, I knew I wanted to focus on like Black owned, clean beauty, natural beauty, hair care products. And so I had to then identify the vendors that sold those products. I had to reach out to a lot of the manufacturers as well as the distributors who carry those products, and then get the pricing to understand what the budget is going to be. So it is a really, really tedious process, to say the least. And now we actually, remove that headache for our clients, and we do that ourselves. But when I got started, I had to rely on a mentor for all this information, because this is not something that you can find online. This is not something that you can Google. You literally have to sit down with someone to understand, what is the pricing, how you price your products, what is selling right now, what are people asking for. You have to literally connect with a mentor, someone who's seasoned in this industry, to really understand all of this information. Because again, the Asians understand this stuff because they have been in this industry for decades, and they have those relationships already with the sales rep. We, however, have to figure out, where do we get this information? Where do we understand pricing? Where do we even understand what a product mix is? And that was a huge void when I first got started, because, I didn't understand, exactly what the community wanted. I knew what I liked and what I wanted and what my, family members liked and what they wanted. But the overall community was a part that I was missing. And so to partner with someone who understands the trends and who understands consumer behaviors, because they've been, operating their business, was, very, very important for me to connect with, so that I can also be successful in my beauty supply store. And so this is exactly what we do now in our program, is we take people through the process, depending on where their location is, to understand what the trends are, how are consumers, buying patterns in their community, and then we create the strategy based on that data.
And then, finally, I'd like to ask you is, we love to analyze, optimize, and maximize. So if you were going to tell someone, one of our viewers, how they would analyze, optimize, and maximize on the fact that this is a market that is has so few Black owners, what would you say in just a kind of quick synopsis of the opportunity itself?
Right. So to analyze, number one is just to walk into your own local beauty supply store, just like I did, and to look around and see the amount of money that's being spent in just the time that you're there. Right. And then you could see that, wow, this is a really lucrative industry. I remember in my own beauty supply store, and it was actually around tax time, that a woman came in and told me that she was going to spend her entire tax check on beauty supplies. I remember young girls coming in and spending their whole, McDonald's paycheck on beauty supply. And so, the proof is in front of us, right? We are our own target market. And so we know that the money is there in this industry. With my store owners, the way I talk to them about analyzing and optimizing their beauty supply stores is just taking a look at their POS data and applying that 80-20 rule. Right. And so we understand that, 20% of our product mix is going to bring in 80% of that revenue. And that holds true with many industries. And so by taking a look at our POS system and taking a look at the data, and first of all, just making sure that you have a POS system, because when I first got started, that was another mistake that I made, is I didn't have. And so now I heavily teach that we need to have these systems in place before you transact at your soft launch, and then applying that 80-20 rule and just looking at the data. So what is our product mix telling us? What 20% of our product categories are bringing 80% of that revenue? And let's drill down on that, and let's, replenish our inventory based on what that data is showing. And that's exactly how I scaled my own beauty supply store, is just taking a look at what the trends are and just keeping my ear to the ground with our consumers and having those conversations. Because again, historically, we come into these stores and there's no conversation, with the owners. And so we have the opportunity to have those conversations. Having events was something that I started with my beauty supply store, and there were never events in the beauty supply store. We never sat down and had actual Black-owned natural hair care brands come into our stores. So I teach a lot of these different innovative strategies with my clients, is that you have to, have these experiences with your consumer to know what is working versus what is not working. And then you can capitalize on that information through experience. And then,
Brilliant, because you're a woman after my own heart when it comes to numbers. The data will tell you. When somebody asks me, what should I do? I say, crunch the numbers. And then finally, Janice Fredericks of Retail Genius, please let our audience know how they could get in contact with you if they want more insight and information on Retail Genius.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Retail Genius. I also have a free mentorship group. So if you are just curious as to what this looks like, you can join our free Facebook group. It is called the Black Beauty Supply Power Circle over on Facebook, where I go live and just share information about what it takes to be a Black-owned beauty supply store. And then also the website is theretailegenius.com.
Excellent. Well, Janice, thank you so much for coming on and giving us some insight into an industry that far too few African Americans are involved in, and that means that there is opportunity. And so I want to leave you with these three things today. So thank you so much, Janice. So I want to leave you with these three things. What are the takeaways from our show today? First off is that relationship, find a mentor. I know to be successful in any business, you want to learn from somebody who's already had a few challenges that they've overcome so that you can learn from them. And then one of the things that became really, really clear in this program is that you've got to build vendor relationships. You've got to learn how to find those products if you're going to be get access to those products if you're going to be successful in this business. And any business venture requires investment in order to get a return on your investment. So really seek out funding alternatives. There are so many programs right now focused on Black women. There are grant programs going on. One tip, if you want to find funding, is a site called Hello Alice, and they have a list of all kinds of grants that are available and are available to women of color specifically. And so that's going to do it for me today. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you learned about the opportunities that exist in the beauty supply industry, and I hope you're going to learn how to get wealthy.